saw myself sailing on a saffron river into the ocean of time. I wrote poems regarding suicide's saddest emotion of rhyme. Breaking waves crashed into me, raging with fierce emotion. The depression worsened, past the living of earth and ocean. Soft warmth of blowing air, life's passions past all breath. As winds grew, I wept no more regarding thoughts of death. My memory sank into something broken, something bent. Years swept backwards, a sandbox swallowed my descent. Jerry, a known bully, and his local gang of thugs were there, buried me neck deep, a weight of which I could hardly bear. I suffered this in terrible silence, one I never ever spoke of, and could never turn this silence into a light shining above. I began smoking marijuana, then started drinking hard liquor. But of crystal meth, nothing relieved my depression quicker. The rocks changed to liquid form, which I was heavily relying. Jerry understood how addiction worked and kept supplying. I roamed this unlit pathway with thoughts full of confliction, a narrow causeway of slippery stones paved with addiction. Mother slept as roses do in her bed with burdens to bear, but those roses that once flourished were no longer there. A knock on the door changed all we knew of time gone by. From tranquility came homelessness in the blink of an eye. With solemn tread we walked past where the sidewalk ends. Mother prayed hard as if she were trying to make amends. These burdens of misery were ours to bear, and ours alone could only be more profound if chiseled on my gravestone. Mother and I lived in a tent by a lake with fear of all things, saw scores of golden butterflies living in the forest as kings. Graceful was the lovely ways of which the butterflies thrive. To gaze at such beauty was all that reminded me I was alive. I watched a lovely butterfly with golden wings fluttering by. Eagerly with bended knee I looked close with a curious eye. Her name was Ziggy, an epic poem having yet to be written. I was enchanted by her youthful beauty, gracefully smitten. My heart, like her golden wings, flushed with happy beating. A feeling I wished forevermore could have stayed repeating. We were happy like distant stars who shared the same view. Showed her my hidden world and she began taking drugs too. We felt angry stares and then a maddening hatred took shape. Ziggy overdosed trying to hide herself in the means of escape. Her light faded and she found herself lost within a black field. Meth dragged her into darkness and forced her heart to yield. The paramedics came at the same moment her life withdrew, reached into her and tried to pull her consciousness through. My sadness grew and streamed above into the nighttime sky. Shining in brightness, the lovely golden butterfly fluttered by. What faith was inside this golden butterfly who taunts death, and they never stopped defibrillating until reviving her breath. Vengeance was hers, raised from certain death into life again. Darkness disbanded with a sickle in hand, sank away, amen. Gossip began falling of tips of tongues every now and then, declared us as druggies over and over and again and again. The darkest of wings fanned the flames of such an attempt, stooped low towards us with words maliciously contempt. For how many sad steps did her tragic tale need to endure, and how many more would come that hadn't come before? Strongly I stood, fixed and ready for partaking in this fight. My rage grew to a roaring blaze burning through the night. Gunshots blared out incredibly loud and dangerously close, scared us to death, probably even more than her overdose. One lay dead, around him everybody frantically scattered. Intensely fearful, we sped away like nothing else mattered. Rolls and rolls of blue tape sealed my fate, covering my lips. A black-robed man recited law from a book of inky script. The verdict fell upon the lofty desk. A hammer, no, a gavel. Guilty of inciting a riot and leaving one dead on the gravel. The death could have and most likely should have been me. 6 months deteriorating in prison and wishing for it to be. All stitching that held our hearts together creased and tore. 6 months of a mental prison and love beheld us no more. A final agony from the sweetest words changed into curses. My poetry bled and was red with fury raging on its verses. Turning emotion into action, I pressed on this narrow way. Consciously I wished for light, but my feet sought to stray. I walked alone at night, heartbroken, confused and weeping. Then the dingy hour of night turned into a need for sleeping. Tormented by such agony was the silent villain of losing sleep. 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3. I wanted to kill all the damn sheep, and darkness rising inside me stirred chaos under my skin, like with Dr. Jekyll, who couldn't hide his murderous twin. I thought about those clouds in sunlight dancing in the air. Now upon earth the clouds were sheep living everywhere. Grabbed one by its neck savagely with my beast-like hands, strangled its ambition, its aspiration, its dreams and plans. Its body bloated with eyes visibly horrified, dimly fell back. The The sheep's eyes closed and its face turned purplish black. I began my descent into darkness where other sheep fled. My fists were clenched and cut by open wounds that bled. Fangs tore through flesh. Chunks of meat severed by knives, ripped apart intestine, devoured and destroyed their lives. Hiding under a cover of darkness lay a secret never known, a deep disguised plot to leave despair worse than my own. Only upon this saffron river would my true reflection show, a reflection of a hideous beast, one of which I didn't know. The silhouette was that of a lion, but my face was of a man. Then came regret, and the sad weeping for the dead began. I awoke and observed no more of my worthless self-vanity, a half-man, half-beast, each questioning the other's sanity. A lovely sunset added violets, yellows, and pink to my vision. Quiet was this passion that poisoned with perfect precision. A ghost came closer, fluttering like a beautiful butterfly does. Our ongoing arguments were never final, but her suicide was. Ziggy often thought of ending her life due to her depression, but it was our arguments that pushed her to this aggression. My sad emotions dissolved into this sorrowful world of grief, and stole my soul's ability to forgive itself like a brazen thief. Above and around me, a biting wind blows viciously, violently. I was reminded of that fateful day she died suddenly, silently. I was upset like before Jesus knew of the betrayal from Judas, and felt the terror like when Caesar was murdered by Brutus. With my eyes full of tears, I saw clearly Ziggy's suicidal brain. Saddest of all days had come from slicing into her lovely vein. Her body convulsed into an indescribable detaching from life. She could have made me the happiest man on earth as my wife. Her arms swayed haphazardly downward along with her will, and from her vein an agony of blood would continually spill. Cold still, yet warmth like a soft kiss offered from Ziggy's lips. Feathery flake fell on my paled skin, gentle as her fingertips. It was then that thought regarding suicide had first arisen. I lay upon a park bench with sadness as my mental prison. I pondered my life, trying to determine what it was all for. I don't think I liked death, just didn't want to live anymore. Circles of useless days and nights coiled around my throat. My suicidal thoughts became fatal with no clear anecdote. Leaves were my pillow, an old wool coat was my blanket. Alcohol was my liquid courage, had some left so I drank it. To cease with no pain was ideally suited for easeful death. Wind would take me to eternal rest upon my quiet breath. My breath declined from the sleeping pills I had swallowed. The path that led me to death could no longer be followed. I heard a beating inside me that my heart could hardly make, and felt hands and arms around me trying to pull me awake. Clear, I heard a deafening voice far beyond the wild expanse, blaring, glaring, and daring me to wake from my grisly trance. I now knew the price of all things and valued a second look, opened my eyes again and viewed earth like an open book. An army of beasts galloping as do horses, shouting like men. Human arms, cracking whips, each beast stronger than 10. Souls cry out, souls die out, souls heard with aching moans, and burnt skin from deep within, the beasts breaking bones. Amidst a darker glade, heads rose, revealing eyes of insanity, gathering the faint scent still left of my worthless humanity. Riderless they came to me, darting eyes and nostrils spread. Impatiently they ran to me, piercing air with lowered head. Above me the black smoke took on a resemblance of a spire indeed, a church held in the discouraging grip of fire. I closed my eyes and there I was, like all the others, chained, dragged firmly inside the church of which the devil reigned. Clear, I heard a second time, closer and louder than before. I heard voices, but all I could see was darkness anymore. Advancing was the repalpitation of my shocked heartbeat. A subtle sensation came back to my eyes, hands and feet. I saw some stones that gives a person's death eternal fame, and one gravestone that rose from ground bore my name. My quest for light had gone out, doused by a purple wave. I looked upon the darkened ground. It was to be my grave. Life had become just gravity, and I felt it pulling me down. 6 feet below, the purple was now dark and filthy brown. Clear. A third time was a final attempt to stop me from dying. I opened my eyes and saw my mother standing there crying. Standing in the back was the reaper whose name was Death. It covered my eyes, nose, mouth, then stole my final breath. I felt a chill of a wintry tongue tasting the essence of my life, pierced like a spear, cutting into my soul like a serrated knife. Faces of the dead were frozen eternally on the thick icy layer. My bones began to break and my skin grew icier and grayer, fell down a long black shaft, closing in, suffocating tightness. Consciously I became disoriented, engulfed by icy whiteness. A dark agitated vision to towering twins. Two poles sparkle through the mist, having bipolar origins. One stood tremendously tall, reaching into unseen skies, the other low and deceitful, like when the devil lies. I flew high past heaven so I could meet Ziggy on a distant star, and lost my way in the darkness. He had fled beyond this far. I asked my soul to come back. My eyes were looking for God. Swept away by a dark wind, my soul flew into a new facade. Who? Why? What? Was this villain moving towards me in black? Was it an odd creature, or was it some kind of homicidal maniac? Draped with black torn skin, hopeless and lifeless were its eyes. Saw the truth, a doorway into the soul where a human still lies. Somehow it existed inside loneliness, between life and death. Guilt was now part of my life. Step for step, breath for breath, I climbed a few short steps to where time became distance. Came to a moment when death broke the back of resistance. Black shadows dimmed the journey of the abyss unknown, and through them I entered the darkness of hell alone. Misery seized my soul, and something wicked with it came. Angelic hearts shudder from the mere mention of its name. Satan's frozen breath formed a carnivorous vortex of frost. Coldness fell in my pathway, and my thoughts became lost. From deep my soul ensured that Satan's wrath was returned. Scorching words by a sad poet whose soul had been burned, and burn I did. I burned with vengeance, burned like a witch. Burning, churning, melting through that frozen son of a bitch. Misery and suffering cry out amongst a melting crowd. Hell was a city of souls sinking, crying deeply and loud. I raised the righteous blade of death and deliver death to all. Devils scream of death, making wet with blood the dry wall. Demons came up from hell, searching with flaming red light. I ran away as a ghost might, into the vast emptiness of night.